A lot of my videos are very technical in nature, but I figured I would go ahead and put together something on how I go about making beats in Studio One. Now, everybody has different ways that they go about doing this in Studio One or any DAW that they're using, but I'm just going to show you some of the methods that I use, and hopefully there will be something that you can add to your own beat making repertoire. So the first thing that I'm going to do is come to the Instruments tab here and then click, hold, and drag on Impact in. And Studio One does come with some drum kits. If you install them, and you'll see these are pretty much the standards that are available in Studio One Artists and Professional. I find the sounds to be a little bit cheesy. I may find one or two that I like from each individual kit, but for me, it always works better if I just use samples from my own personal sample library. So I'll come to the files, and then here, this is going to be on files by default or whatever you were last on, but I've created a link to my sample library. So I'm going to click once, and then I have access to my library here. Now, the very first thing that I want to say, and I can't stress this enough, is that your beats, one of the most important things are the sounds that you choose. Even if you make a basic beat, if you have some good sounds that you've chosen, then it can still sound good, particularly after you layer on other instruments and samples and other things like that. The beat doesn't have to be extravagant, just make sure that you're choosing good sounds. And I don't really know how to explain to do that. It's just when I'm going through my samples, if something catches me, and then as I build the samples within Impact, I'm kind of going towards a certain sound based on the samples that I'm choosing, and I continue on in that direction. But I don't really know how to explain what I'm hearing in my head as I'm going through the samples and why I make that decision. It's just the sounds, they catch me, and I add them. I just drag them from the browser onto the pads. So I'm going to go ahead and start making some sounds selections, and then we will be back in just a moment. Let's find a snare. Let's double up that snare. I may use both of these. And now I'm going to find some field samples, because I like to use field samples in my drums. We'll come here. Okay, so I've made all of my selections for the drum sounds, and I want to say that typically when I'm making my beats, I use a mixture of traditional drum sounds and found sounds. So there's some regular drums in here, and then there's some field samples. So we'll just go through and listen to each one of these, and I'm going to have to take a little bit of time to maybe tweak some of the field samples that I brought in to get them to fit with my beat. So I'll just start from the bottom. We'll just sample these really quickly. So I generally will put my kicks on the bottom and snares on the second row. And so I've got a couple field samples here. I'll end up adjusting the start and ends of these to find what I'd like. Now, so kick and snare, I generally populate these bottom two with those. And then I won't use all of these, but I at least have a few that I can pick from while I'm working on the beat. Then up top, I'll put some percussive here on the third row, generally. Let's stop that by clicking on the all notes. Okay, so again, I'll have to tweak start and end markers for these. Then let's go ahead, all notes off. And then I'll put some other samples at the very top. So these, sometimes when I'm working on my beat, I like to have these other samples in here because they can help inspire me. If you ever have beat block, then bring in some other audio samples, like for instance this. I can adjust my start and end markers to take a sample from here, and then I can, trigger that, and it will play back, and this will help to inspire me to get my beat going. I don't always do that, but sometimes I do, and I think I'll start out with one of these samples first to help get me in the groove for my beat. Okay, we'll do all notes off, and we don't need the browser at this point. And another thing to keep in mind is that if we're not happy with any of these sounds, these were pulled from specific folders within my sample library. So when we're working on our beat, if we've got some things programmed, we can always select a particular sound, like the kick here. Now, this is the kick name. We have a left and right arrow, so while our beat is playing back, we can use the left and right arrow to cycle through different kicks in the folder that I pulled this one from. So that's another technique that I like to use but one of these should work for me. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on working on finding a part from these up at the top to help get me going. And I'm going to close out the browser. And then also, I'm going to double click here on the instrument track for the end pack. Just double click. Here we have a 1 bar MIDI part that's been added. I'll typically do 2 bars or 4 bars for my beat. Maybe for this video, I'll do 4 bars. I'm going to press P as in Paul to set the loop region around this MIDI part. And I'm going to click here in the transport to activate the loop. You can also press the / to activate the loop. Okay, so now I'm going to find something that inspires me from these samples here, and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so I've settled on this part here. Now, multiple ones are playing back when I trigger this, so I'm going to set the choke group to self so that it will choke itself, and only one will play at a time. Okay, so I'm going to set the tempo to 90. Let's press enter, and I want to check that my metronome, that I've got my offbeat. If Studio One didn't have an offbeat, then I would do this in double time, maybe like 160, 170 or something like that. Because having that offbeat click really helps me for some reason. I don't know why. So if I play this back with the click on, I'll press C to turn the click on. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to use the data zoom here to zoom in a bit vertically. And actually, let's pull this up a bit as well so we can really focus in on the drums. So I need to find that. Okay, so this may be a little bit tricky because it's long and the timing could be a little bit weird. So I'm just gonna, and actually I'm gonna open up the impact, and while this is still highlighted, this is our sample. I'm gonna select follow tempo here. This may help. Okay, I think I like that. So now I am going to get a kick going on here. Okay, and also it also is helpful for me to go ahead and add my snare on the 2 and the 4. So and actually in this instance I may just do the 4 and change the tempo. I don't think I like this second kick, so. And I'm going to change the quantize to 1/8. And you'll just eventually over time kind of learn. When I put this in the 1/8 and you're kind of safe to put the kicks anywhere on the 1/8. Your snares are typically going to be on 2 and 4, although these can vary as well, as I've done here, and put one on the 4. So we'll just keep on filling this out. Okay, so I think we might be able to use these wind chimes a bit, but I'm gonna have to change the start and end point on these. So let's go ahead and open up our end pack by clicking on here. Now I'm kind of counting in my head how long that is. So I want to go ahead and add that here. And let's actually try to take the pitch down. We'll put that back. Well, it needs to be in pitch with the vocals. And I'm going to normalize the vocals. Okay, let's try to get another snare in here because I'm not happy with the snare. It needs a little bit more something. So we'll double these up. And maybe add some fills in there with the snare. So I'm going to take this little fill down a little bit, the velocity. Also, another thing, I typically have snap turned off when I'm adding these notes because I don't like for everything to be rigid. But since I forgot, I'm going to come to the, let's click once to be sure that not a single note is selected. And when nothing is selected, it's going to apply to everything here. So I'm going to come to the actions. Since I forgot to turn off the snap, so I'm going to humanize this. So here under the quantize section, we have humanize, and I'm just going to leave the default settings. So you'll see, and we'll just leave that and click OK. So you can see some adjustments in the velocity here, and there has been some slight movement, I believe, or not. Okay, let's come back to the humanize, and I didn't have the start range selected, so we'll do this just a little bit and move it this way. So now the start range is going to be adjusted for our notes, so it's going to basically move them off the grid because this is really robotic right now. I don't like it, so I'll click OK. Okay, so now I'm not happy with this. And this was moved too much. Okay, so let's do some rough mixing because let's normalize these things. They're actually already normalized. Okay, so I'm gonna put all of the kicks on the channel 1. Okay, so they're already all on 1. So the snare I'm gonna put on 2. This we'll put on 3. We'll put this one on 4. Let's go to the mix console. And let's add some delay to that vocal. Actually, I just wanted the analog delay. Well, we'll roll with this. And I'm also going to add some room reverb. Take that down. Let's open up our I'm going to put some compression on the snare. Turn the makeup on. Take the release down. Introduce the attack so we get more of the transient in there. Take the kick down a bit. Take the rain down a little bit. Let's take the click off by pressing C. Okay, now let's come to the browser and bring in sample 1. We'll go to my sample library and let's come to let's find an 808. Okay. And I'm going to double click to add a MIDI part. Let's use the data zoom to zoom in here. And we're going to need to open up the sample 1 and let's change the trigger mode to one shot. And this is in mono, that's what we want, so it's gonna re-trigger every time so it won't overlap and sound muddy. I'm gonna turn the snap on also here. And I'm just hearing this in my head. I can't really describe it. Okay, now I'm not quite happy with the snare. Okay, let's Okay, let's see if we can use the follow tempo to get this one to work. Put that on beat 4. So, loading dishwasher. Let's be sure that that's choking itself. Okay. Let's try to add some other drum sounds in here too. Kicks, rather. So I'm going to take these kicks back up a little bit when they humanize. I think I lost a bit of that velocity and I want that back. So when I double click, it selects all of these and then we can then adjust the velocity for all of them. Let me try that again. Okay, we'll just drag. I'm not sure I like that one, so we'll just adjust. I like this one the best, so let's get more of that in there. Let's change the we'll take these down just a little bit. Let's go to the mix console. And we have some serious clipping going on here. We'll take the kick down a little bit. Okay, so now I kind of want to add like some ethnic percussion, and I'm actually just going to use a loop for this if I can find one. So I'm going to come back to the browser and come to my loops, come to this Earth moments here, and see what type of percussion I can find in here and add to this beat. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and play back so that I can hear this in relation to the song. And we're going to turn on the little metronome there so that it keeps time. Okay, I think I like this one. Let's maybe just put these on the end. Maybe not that one. Okay. Let's maybe take that down a little bit. And actually, I'm not happy with the way that sample is beginning. The vocal. It's like cutting off some of it. And actually, let's also turn the filter on and change this to high pass. Take out some of the low one on this. Normally I don't adjust the gain on the impact, but just for the tutorial. Okay, So it's not my best beat for sure, but this was more about showing the methods that I use. I'm not trying to create a masterpiece here. So yeah, hopefully you saw some things in here that you can use for your own beat creation. And again, this is just mainly to show some of the techniques that I use when creating the beat. If I'm doing this for a song that I'm going to keep, I'm going to spend a lot more time finding the samples that I really want. I'm going to spend a heck of a lot more time tweaking, and I'm going to do a heck of a lot more time doing some rough mixing to develop the beat even more. Then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate some of this out and remove certain parts at certain areas to create kind of a skeleton track for the beat and continue on filling that out. But this was more something like a quick start for beginners to help you get started and see how you can go about creating beats within Studio One. All right, I hope it's been helpful, and I will see you in the next tutorial.